Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of TRUUU Podcast. I'm your host, Drea.
And I'm Alex.
And this week we're reprising an old episode from season 1 that we promised would have a continuation, and then we just kind of forgot about it. But it is from our old episode of movies with the worst endings. And today we are doing TV shows with the worst endings. And if you guys tuned into that original episode, we did have my roommate on, Ryan Perez, and he is here with us again to give us his commentary. Ryan, you want to say hello?
I am happy to be back.
Oh my God.
I'm really glad that you guys are in the same house and Ryan's internet is just going
That
insane.
was wild. It was like talking to E.T. Wait, try saying something again, Ryan.
I'm here. Yeah.
How is your Wi-Fi so crappy? We're on the same Wi-Fi and you're closer to the router.
This always happens.
That's so weird. Okay, well, hopefully it doesn't poop out as we continue on. But thank you, Ryan, for joining us again. We're excited to have you. So let's move into our first little segment that we neglected to do last week if you listened, but it's our week updates. Alex, how was your past week?
So my past week was good. So as most of you guys may remember or probably forgotten, because really who cares about what we do in real life? But I work at a school in an admission office and our application was due this past Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just coming off the busiest week of my life last week. It was insane the amount of emails we had in just 1 week alone. It was so now this week when things have calmed down because the application's already been due now, people aren't going as insane as they were.
So does that mean that you're not what does that mean? So that you accepted everyone already, or just your applications are done?
The application was just due on Friday.
Oh, okay. So now you have to do the acceptance.
Right.
Mm.
Which is a beast in and of itself, but that's a whole different thing. So one thing that no one is going to care about, but I really care about because it was the most exciting thing ever.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that either of you two really play this because I think that there's only one Switch in your household. But so Animal Crossing, right, you guys?
Okay.
And I added a new house plot to my island, and literally the most popular villager in all of the game moved onto my island.
What does that mean?
So
what is, I don't get it.
Let me explain. Andrea.
Is it a bad thing?
No, it's great. So, huh?
Is he evicting you? Does that mean that you have to be pushed out? Or I don't understand Animal Crossing.
Okay, here's the thing. So your husband plays this game, so he should be here to understand this because he'd actually be oh, okay. So, and JT, shout out to JT. If you actually listen to the podcast, you'll understand what I mean too. So I just sold a plot of land on my island so a new villager can move in because you could have a max of 10 villagers on your island.
Okay.
The one that moved in, his name is Raymond, and he's a cat who has 2 different color eyes.
Raymond.
Okay. And he's a fan favorite in the game, mostly because he's really into himself and whatever and has a cool guy vibe. People have paid actual money to get him onto their island. He's a black market item.
Wow. Yay for Alex.
And he just randomly moved onto my island. I'm just kind of dang, man, this is what everyone was trying to do on this game was get Raymond onto their island.
That's
and
exciting.
He just randomly came to mine.
I feel like I have not kept up with the whole Animal Crossing community. The last thing that I remember hearing about was oh, I gotta catch more tarantulas. That was the last thing I know about Animal Crossing.
I spent
excited for you.
I spent a solid 2 weeks creating a rock garden on my island because this is not something you're gonna understand. So there's naturally rocks spawning on your island, and if you hit them, items come out, money and just resources.
Sure.
And you can break the rock if you eat a piece of fruit and you get super strength basically from it, and you could hit a rock and it'll break and then it will spawn somewhere else the next day. So I placed mannequins over like every inch of my island to get the rocks to spawn in the places I wanted them to
Seems
like
a
create
lot
a
of
rock
work.
garden, and it took like almost 2.5 weeks.
And what's the purpose of a rock garden? Just to be avant-garde?
Well, to have all your rocks right next to each other, so it's really easy to farm materials.
Oh, all right then.
Because I'd be too lazy to do it otherwise, because I'd have to run all the way around my island to go find each rock.
I'm sure that all of our listeners who actually play Animal Crossing are just like, man, that's so cool. But I'm just like, okay. Like,
Anyway, so that's just me. Okay.
Thank you for that update. Ryan, how was your week?
Do I still sound weird? Do I
Oh,
sound
no,
No.
you sound pretty good.
Okay, perfect. My week's been cool. We recently started back up school again, and so I was telling Dre earlier. I was like, I already have a bunch of kids not doing their assignments, and that's my life. And Alex, I had no idea what you were talking about when it came to Animal Crossing. No idea. I
Me both.
recently got back into Attack on Titan, and by recently I mean last night. I was like, I could watch season 3. And I didn't go to bed till like 2:00 in the morning because I was just like binging it.
That's
Yeah.
not true. You literally just told me that you didn't go to sleep until 2:00 in the morning because you were watching The Night Stalker.
That too. So I started off watching The Night Stalker, and then I started watching Attack on Titan because
Okay,
I was
fine.
still awake. And I was
Okay,
just
fine.
like,
It tracks.
yeah. And so I was just like, cool. And so I'm into that right now, but I don't have the dub because I have adult things to do, and I can't be bothered to watch subs and read them right now. And I don't know. I wish I had a cool Animal Crossing story, but I don't play Animal Crossing. I never got the point of it. I don't like being in debt in a fake game, nor do I like being in debt in real life. So I don't know.
I feel like it's too triggering.
It is. It's very triggering. I've been planning doing a stand-up kind of special in my friend's backyard with like him and 3 other people. So we've been talking about that, and so
That's
been
exciting. I haven't
That's
heard
pretty
about that.
dope.
I did see on your Facebook you posted something like, "Oh, I think I'm getting back into stand up," and I was like, "Ooh."
Yeah, I'm just aiming to offend everybody just equally.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
I think we just need equality right now, and that's the
feel
only
that.
way I know how to bring it. But yeah,
Just
that's it.
defending everyone equally. That's
I
funny.
got a rabbit's foot. Recently, so that's cool.
That's fun.
In my
Yeah.
house?
Yeah, that's on my
Like,
keychain.
I don't know
But
if
that's it. That's all the
I
crazy stuff.
approve this. I don't think that's in the house rules. I don't think we approved rabbit's feet.
Rabbit's foot. See?
Oh God.
Oh, nice.
I hate it.
Don't you guys remember when that was like a really big thing like 15 years ago?
No.
Like I remember like all my cousins in Idaho like had different colored rabbit's feet, and just kind of like low key jealous at the time. But now I'm just kind of like, I really don't need that. I'm cool.
I've never, I did not remember this being a thing. Well, that's cool, Ryan. Hate that that's in my house, but very fun. For me, I'm kind of like a mix of you guys because like Alex, I've been watching my husband play a video game recently, and that's been Portal, the original
Oh.
Portal.
Portal's dope.
He's never played it.
I love
And
Portal.
just recently I came into acquiring, well, not acquiring, I'm borrowing, but a Xbox 360, one that actually works still.
Oh, nice.
Amazing, because that's like the worst gaming system in the history of gaming systems. And so my friend lent it to me, and I'm just like, holy moly, because all of my games, like all of my like old games are all for the Xbox 360, because as Alex knows, I used to have an
Yeah.
Xbox 360, which was a piece of garbage.
Legendary.
Yeah. And so we've been spending like the past couple of weeks just like binging old video games. And so Aaron's never played Portal, and I have Portal 2. And so I was like, well, if you want to play Portal 2, you got to play Portal 1. And so he's just now at the final level, and he's finally understanding why the cake is a lie, because I kept on being like, the cake is a lie. Yeah, literally. I was like, just don't believe her, the cake's a lie. And the whole time he's just like, I don't get it. I don't understand what you're saying. And finally today I came home and he's just like, I understand it now.
Okay, so is the turret song in the first or the second one?
The second one. I think it's the second one.
I think that the turrets are the cutest things that I've ever seen. I love the
they're
turrets
cute.
so much.
They're cute. Portal's such a good game. But
It
anyway,
is.
so yeah, I've been watching him play Portal. He's almost done. And then on the flip side, so yesterday, me and Alex were supposed to film this podcast,
Right.
but I had to cancel because I had made plans prior in the week with my friend from Whittier, and and Alex will be actually happy about this, but our plans were to watch some episodes of The Promised Neverland together.
I was gonna ask you and yell at you if you hadn't watched it yet.
No, so I'm on episode 5 and I have to wait because we have to watch episode 5 together. But I gotta say, I am intrigued. The plot twist. Well, I guess I shouldn't say anything in the event that someone wants to watch it, but there's a plot twist at the end of episode 4 that really had me like, whoa, I really thought it was going to go a different way. And this took me by surprise.
We're gonna have to talk about it once you stop recording on this, because I instantaneously want to just talk about it. So we'll talk
Is
about
that,
that.
is that the show about the anime orphans?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I heard about that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And actually, so my friend Robert, who I'm watching it with, he's a big anime. That's the reason I'm watching it with him, is because he's a big anime person and he never seen it. And I was like, well, my friend wants me to watch it, so let's watch it together. Da 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 da, whatever. And he was showing me this website called like My Anime List.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like this website where like you can look up a bunch of animes and see like their ratings, and then you can like make a list of the animes you've watched. And so we were like falling down a hole yesterday of like looking at the ratings of our favorite animes. And I'm happy to report that all the animes that I like are at least a 7. So I think that's pretty good.
I feel like that's probably a pretty short list though, isn't it?
That's rude, Alex.
I have to agree with Alex. I feel like
See?
it's a short list.
I mean, what constitutes a short list? There's like 7. Is that a short list?
That's a
Yes.
short list. In anime terms, yeah, that's a short list.
Okay, well, screw you guys. I'm trying.
Well, I'm glad that you're watching My Promised Neverland, because it's been weeks since I told you to watch it.
Okay, well, I've been busy. I was watching The Night Stalker. Have you seen The Night Stalker, Alex?
I'm not. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh, it just came out on Netflix and I cannot recommend it higher. It is about the Night Stalker, which occurred in the San Gabriel Valley with like in the 80s. Like my parents lived through it, like they remember it. And he's like a serial killer who was just like rampaging our like where we live. Like he was hitting all this area like Arcadia, Monrovia, Whittier, Diamond Bar, like this whole like San Gabriel area. And it's just like chilling and so interesting. And the way they caught him was so good. And it's a limited series. It's only 4 episodes. So it's so watchable. Highly recommend it.
I'll put it on my list because during the day I'm rewatching One Tree Hill, and in the evening I'm plugging through Clone Wars.
Okay, well.
I finally got to a point where Clone Wars started to get interesting to me. So it's making my siblings happy. So I need to keep watching it.
Okay, well, if you have time, I highly recommend Night Stalker. Ryan just watched it also, and I think he liked it.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good, and especially because it hits so close to home because it's literally in our backyard that this happened. So anyway, let's move into the topic at hand today, which, as I mentioned prior, we are discussing the TV shows that we feel have the absolute worst endings. And so the first one that we have on our list is one that I think all 3 of us mutually, well, Ryan, I actually don't know if you watched this, but I'm pretty sure you did, but it's one that I think all 3 of us mutually will agree is like one of the all-time worst TV show endings, and that is How I Met Your Mother. Take it away, someone. Anyway.
Okay.
I hated it.
Yeah, go. Yeah. It was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, it is. It's such a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's such a strong cast, such a strong show, so much growth to be like, you know what? We don't need a good ending. Let's just ruin everything.
The thing is that like I read somewhere or like I heard somewhere that they wrote the last episode like at the same time that they wrote the first season. And something tells me that that's not a good idea. Like in any situation for any show, writing the last episode when you're barely starting the show, I feel like isn't a good idea.
Well, I kind of feel like that tracks though, because the kids were the same age in the last episode, right, as they were in the beginning, so they'd have to film that basically at the same time.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it makes sense logistically, but it doesn't make sense for like giving us a good time. If that makes sense.
I think they didn't think they were gonna go as long as they did.
Probably.
And maybe they had a set plan of just like, this is how the show's gonna go. And then it got really popular, and they're like,
Right.
How many seasons was it? Like 8?
It was nine.
It was 9.
Isn't it
Something
9.
8 or 9, something like that.
and you just became one of the most popular things in the world, and for a little while, and I don't think they like kind of were ready for that, and they're like, let's just have all this character growth, and oh yeah, we still have to hit this ending. Like that last episode just feels like, oh, we have to wrap this all up right now.
Well, so I feel like, because of the title of like this whole podcast and whatever, we can get into, I think, the finer points of what happened during the last episode of this, because spoiler alert, they killed off the mother that we've been waiting for years.
Yeah, literally.
Killed her off after just meeting her like a few episodes before, even, because like I think that everyone felt like watching the beginning of the last season, like, what are we doing? I feel like we're kind of wasting time on lukewarm plot here. And then finally getting to the end, they meet, whirlwind, they kind of have a life together. She dies. And then he's just like, well, joke's on you kids. I'm actually still into your Aunt Robin.
Right? Which just like makes like it disgusting to me. Like they're trying to portray them having this really beautiful, loving life together until she like ultimately dies of like a disease. And then like a hot skip and a jump away, he's just like, well, peace out, like BZ, I'm jumping into Robin's pants, Like it makes it feel not nice. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, but what makes it worse to me is that it's like the kids who say just like, oh, well, wasn't this story just about Aunt Robin?
Yeah, they like the kids at the end, they're just like, wait, like, why aren't you with her? Like, Aunt Robin makes you so happy to, like they're all for it. I'm just like, yeah, right. If my mom just died, I'd be like, Dad, you're never remarrying ever again.
Right.
Like maybe when I'm an adult and I'm like, a few years down the road and I see he's unhappy alone and stuff, maybe be like, okay, Dad, like, let's figure out something. But like, soon after for a while, I would be like, that's not happening.
I think what upsets me so much about the final episode is that they spend like basically an entire season on a wedding.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Right.
Amen.
It's like, why not just make this a 2-episode special? So when we get here and this is what you really want to do, doesn't feel like a big waste of time.
Right.
100%. But to your point exactly, Ryan, is like, I feel like the entire show now feels like a waste of time to me.
Yes.
Because ultimately it's like, okay, we're going to see all this character growth. We're going to see like Barney go from being this like womanizer to being someone who's loving, and like Robin going from like this free spirit to like being tied down, and like, like Lily and Marshall, just like all of the growth that they had, which ultimately I guess they didn't really change too much. So fine. And then like Ted and everything. And ultimately it's all unraveled. So why are we even watching it just to know that at the end they're just going to be the same exact way that they started off?
Yeah. No,
so,
yeah.
So like the thing is that the whole last season like happened during my sophomore year of college. I think Drea, I don't know what point you were at because you graduated a year before me. So if you were in some weird hybrid year like time, but it was sophomore year of college. And I was basically like forced into creating a like my floor's like event for this. So like every Monday, because I believe it was on a Monday, we'd get together, like our end of the hall would get together to watch this, which is really just my roommates and like Chris and stuff. And people like, they were so upset about the ending, they were like crying. Like Tyler, I'm pretty sure cried.
Oh my gosh, like that's excessive, but like I feel you. I didn't cry, but like I get it. I was upset too.
I was pretty ticked off. Because I'm just kind of like, the thing I hated most was Robin and Ted together.
Oh,
like
100.
I was pretty like shipping Robin and Barney.
Yeah.
Like totally. I was just like, I like this. I like the growth that they've made together. It makes sense to me. I'm willing to buy into it. And then all of a sudden it's just like, screw you guys, apparently.
So let me ask you guys this. What do you feel like would be the appropriate ending for this show?
The mom not dying.
Okay, but like, so you think, but like, then what? It's just like they get married, the end. Like they just live forever and ever, happy ever after. Well, I'll give my opinion
like
if you guys need.
No, I was just trying not to make a really messed up joke. I'm trying to censor myself a little bit. No, I think there's just so much more wrong with that last episode than just them not ending up together. I can do that, Like I could do the whole like, okay, the mother's gonna die. Like if you would have introduced her sooner and we could spend more time with her instead of a montage, which I hate. I hate montages and things. And like the whole like Barney and Robin thing, I think if they would have stayed together or at least like had some very difficult, like there's a lot of room to have a like real adult conversation about how relationships work, how they fail, but you can still learn from them and grow from them. Instead of Barney just like, I'm a playboy again. Oh, here's a child. I got to be an adult. Like I know people who find a child and they're playboys and they're like, all right, cool. Like I have a kid now, but I'm still gonna do the same stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the answer, but like I don't know, like if the mother would have died, I think like there could even been a place for like Ted to be like, I don't mind being by myself anymore. Like I did find the love of my life. Like that's okay. Cause I feel like Ted, like I related to a lot with Ted where it's like, oh, like especially in that part of my life where I was just like, I'm gonna find this and that. And I think it would have been a much more beautiful message of I'm okay by myself. I have my kids. I had the love of my life and I always will. Not instead of I'm gonna go sleep with your aunt. So
Yeah.
That's a really
enjoy
good
that.
point, actually. Like that would have been like a proper goodbye to the show and like a proper like tying it all together of Ted's finally grown out of being like a hoe a little bit.
Totally. I like 100. I'm glad that you said that, Ryan, because that's exactly what I thought should have been the ending for the movie. Like I feel like they should have had 3 images of what a healthy relationship could be. Like one, the Lily Marshall, like they're just together, they're happy, they're in love, they have kids, perfect life, nuclear family. And then Ted and Robin, like they went through so much adversity. They really try to make it work. And ultimately at the end, like they ended up going separate ways. They're still happy. They're living their own lives. And like, they learn from it. And then
Do you mean Barney and Robin?
Oh yeah, sorry. Barney and Robin. God. Yeah, Barney and Robin. And then the whole like Ted and what is her name even? We didn't
Tracy.
Tracy. We didn't even spend enough time for her name to register in my brain.
Her name's Tracy.
Yeah, and then the whole like Ted and Tracy and showing how like love doesn't necessarily have to be like in the living, like love can go past the grave. You say like till death do us part, but like ultimately that person's soul, their energy is still with you many times. And I feel like that would be such a perfect way to end it, to like show like those typecasted relationships in the 3 different ways, Instead they had to like totally screw it up. But I think that would have been a really good ending.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
Any other thoughts before we move on to the next bad ending?
Nope, there's nothing really more to say about how horrible the ending of How I Met Your Mother was.
We cannot like, just point this like this whole like idea that How I Met Your Mother ended so terribly out enough, but yet I feel like it's been overdone because everyone just collectively knows how bad it is.
It's been like 6 or 7 years and I'm still mad about it.
Totally.
I think there's nothing wrong with the TV show having a bad ending, but I think with this show especially, it just feels like a huge waste of time. Because I don't think every TV show that does that feels like a waste of time. There's still stuff you can enjoy in it. But when the whole purpose of the show is that like climactic point, and you are able to taint the whole journey, that's like saying something about your ending. There's one other show I was thinking about today that does that, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Ryan, I totally agree. Like, I feel like I can't really watch it I can't rewatch How I Met Your Mother because I just feel like I already know it's gonna end. It's not fun to rewatch it. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so the next TV show that is on here, which breaks my heart because this is arguably one of my all-time favorite shows in the history of like TV.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Scrubs. Kill me.
I literally, when you texted me about this, I literally responded, Scrubs.
Yeah, like Scrubs. Literally. And it's so heartbreaking because the show before they reprised it with season 9 is so beautifully done. I feel like every single episode I love wholeheartedly.
Wept. I like sobbed during the season 8 finale. Like, it was so
oh my God, yes. That is, I think that's probably my all-time favorite finale for any show I've seen. Because
I can agree with that.
It hits you in your feels like that. I know Ryan said in like literally moments ago that he hates montages and anything that ever comes with montages. But that ending montage where like he's seeing the what could be in his future is so freaking beautiful.
And the song that they put with it too, I'm just kind of like, my heart.
That is, Scrubs is the exception to that rule. There are a few, but when they're playing Book of Love by Peter Gabriel and showing like the wedding and all that stuff. If you haven't seen Scrubs, we're gonna spoil it for you because it's not a plot.
Oh, big time. It's not like it's a new show.
Yeah. But I love it so much. And that scene where he's like walking through the hall and he sees everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Right before he gets to that screen where he sees like the future. I was like, this is great. And they're like, we're bringing it back. I was like, why?
Yeah. Why would you do this?
Why?
Well, the thing is, I was actually because I didn't watch Scrubs like when it was originally airing. I like watched it after the fact. And so when I ended season 8 and I was like, wait a second, there's a season 9. I was legitimately excited because I was so sad. Like that last episode, I was like, oh my God, like my favorite characters. And this is this. And I was like legitimately like, oh my God, like let's watch this. I'm so excited. And then I put it on and I was like, turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, because the whole thing, and if for those of you who don't know, the whole thing with season 9 is that it's JD and like other people, basically like the hospitals turned into also like a medical school.
Yeah, it's
so like there's kind of like a passing of the torch to like different characters as well. So like JD is still a big part of it, and I think Turk's still a big part of it too. But like other characters aren't. Like Sarah Chalk doesn't really come back. I don't think that Carla's really there either. Yeah. And I'm not even sure it got a full like season. Did it? Did season 9 get a full run?
I honestly don't remember.
They got a final. I remember like them bringing back like bigger cast members, but it's luckily I don't think it's one of those endings that ruins the rest of the show because it's like it's separate own season. So you're like, we could just act like this doesn't exist.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like Scrubs was so legendary in the sense of like it stayed so good for so long. Like I kind of felt like it got a little bit weaker there towards the end, but they really finished it. Hey, relax. A little bit weaker, where it's not as hilariously funny.
Huh? What makes you say that though? I feel like my favorite episodes are like towards the end.
I'm not saying that they were bad. I'm not at all saying they're bad because I love Scrubs.
The janitor's wedding, like that 2-parter episode is my all-time favorite. Like it's so good. Like the whole like Bahama Mama with Dr. Kelso.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's classic.
But anyway, the point being is that the rest of the show kind of stands on its own in the way that like you want to rewatch it still.
Yeah, definitely.
And like I don't listen to it as much, but like Drea and I both know that we listen to the Fake Doctors Real Friends podcast. And it's hysterical. Them like going over like all these episodes. It's so funny, and it makes you want to watch it again.
Oh, 100. I actually like have been like I'm a little bit ahead. I was trying to watch the episodes with the podcast so that I can like do it with each other. But then I'm so bad at that, so I'm like a little bit ahead of it. But funny you bring that up because I was gonna say how they've mentioned in one of their episodes the last season 9. And they've kind of talked about it a little bit and how originally they were planning to do this kind of like what you were saying, Alex, with the passing of the torch. Like they wanted Zach Braff to be in it in the very beginning to be like, oh, like remember Zach Braff? And then he was eventually going to be like phased out and you're supposed to feel like the main character, the blonde girl, was like the new JD.
Right, yeah.
And I feel like that is just an outlandish thought that they thought that they could do, because like there's no way that after seeing 8 seasons of our favorite character JD, we're just going to accept that like, oh, this is the new JD, this girl,
I think that this is the perfect example of something that I think that, showrunners fall into a lot is like, one, just don't fix what ain't broke. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing wrong with just like wrapping up your success with, a whole story and just leaving it there and not ruining it afterwards. Like don't get greedy, don't try to capitalize on it too much. Like I think that the longer something goes on, and like this goes with movies as well, like the more sequels you have, the higher the chances of it sucking.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think the best way to exemplify that point is with the show Schitt's Creek. And how like they chose to end it. Like they could have gone on to more seasons and they chose to end it at season 6, even though everyone was like, no, like we need more episodes, we need more seasons. But they were just like, no, like we don't want to drag out a good thing. Exactly what you're saying. And like, honestly, after watching that show and after like seeing the ending, I'm just like, no, they made such a good idea to just cut it, like cut it here, not get any worse, and in a high note. And I feel like
Right.
Scrubs, maybe they felt, because I don't feel like Scrubs got as much notoriety as they have now, like when they were airing. Because I mean, they were airing during the same time that Friends was airing. And so it's
Right.
like impossible that they would have been like such a big show in comparison to Friends. And like that's something that they actually talked about on their podcast, how like there was like a period of time where they were given the slot to come on after Friends.
Right.
And it was like a really big deal because it's like whatever, you have the biggest like viewing. And there's like this, I guess there's like this rule of thumb in TV where you have to hold at least like a certain percentage of the previous show's viewage to keep that slot.
Yeah.
And so I guess like it was impossible for any show to ever keep it. So like they constantly was like being like filtered out, and they're just like, even though our show was like so amazing, like there's no way that you can compete with Friends. And I feel like because of that reason, they didn't necessarily get like the hype that they deserved. And maybe that's why like after the fact, after they ended and everyone's now being like, oh my God, Scrubs is so good, this episode, la da da da. Maybe that's why like, well, let's bring it back. You know, like now we're getting the hype. Like that's my thought process through maybe why they did the last season.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize.
The only memorable thing, like in all of season 9 for me, is I don't know if you remember this, Dre, but like one of our mutual friends is really into doing this weird mouth noise that I saw. Yeah.
That one, yeah.
And
all the listeners are like, nope, I'm out.
And Dave Franco, because he's on the show, Dave Franco actually like does that on the show. And like I filmed it once, like when I was watching it, like in the dark, I filmed it and I tagged him in it. I tagged
so
our
funny.
It's like it's everywhere. Because I was really mad at it, like when he started doing that. I'm just like, why? Why do you need to make this noise?
Not great.
It started becoming a thing. But anyway, that's the only thing I really remember from it.
I don't really remember anything. The only thing I remember really was what you said. Dave Franco was in it. The end. Yeah. So. And also there's also like the main like bad boy or whatever. He is in an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's all I know.
I remember thinking he was pretty cute.
Really?
Like watching that season, yeah.
Well, he's in an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so I guess you gotta watch it.
Okay, so quick sidebar, because I think that you, Dre, would find this to be really funny. So one thing you listeners should know is that for a while now, Dre has been trying to get me to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I have watched some episodes with her, and I do concede that it is funny, even though I don't generally like Andy Samberg.
Right.
But I will concede that it is funny. And it is the funniest part about the situation is that I mentioned it like offhand, like to my older brother, and him and his wife started watching it. Because
really?
They talked about it. So now they've been watching it.
Oh my God, and now you have it? Do they love it?
Yeah, they think it's pretty funny.
It's so funny. And like, I feel like one of the main reasons that Alex was so reluctant to watch it is because Andy Samberg. And in the beginning episodes, Andy Samberg is very Andy Samberg. And I keep telling her, I'm just like, as the seasons go on, he matures, he becomes like a different person. You got to keep with it. And she's just like, but he's so annoying. Just got to stick with it.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, sorry, we went on a tangent. Okay, let's move back to our topic at hand. So yes, Scrubs breaks my heart. The next one I have on here is Community.
Have you watched Community, Ryan?
Yeah,
I love Community, except the one season that everyone calls the gas leak season.
Which season are you mentioning?
It's the second to last season.
Oh, the second to last season. Is that the one when like they kill off Chevy Chase and whatnot?
No, I think that's still the Dan Harmon season. Which is understandable why they got rid of Chevy Chase. There was a lot.
I mean, Chevy Chase was problematic.
Yeah.
But like for me, it was more when what's his face, Donald Glover left. That's when I was checked out.
Yeah, I think the show's writing was still strong. Besides that one season, I think in the last season, it's fine. It's not memorable, which I think it does deserve to be on this list just for that, for being such a strong show until the end. But I don't know. I don't know what really happened. I can't tell you. I just remember the last scene of the finale, but that's about it.
To be 100% transparent, I actually haven't seen the ending of the show because I really liked it. And once Donald Glover left and once they killed off Chevy Chase, I was just so mentally over it. And I just was like, I don't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah, it was really the same sort of situation for me. I think I left around the same time that Drea did. And like, it was my entire household jumped off the show at once.
Really? Oh, God.
Because we were all watching it together.
Mhm.
Like, that was one of the things that we had recording and we would watch together. And then basically around the time Pierce died and when Donald Glover left, that it was just kind of like, it got kind of boring. It felt a little just dry.
Yeah, totally.
We all lost interest. Every single one of us, we stopped.
Yeah, so I don't even know, like, when Ryan's saying, like, oh, the last season, like, the last episode, this is, I'm like, I don't even know what happened in it, dude. I didn't watch it.
And I think it deserves to be on this list. I mean, for at least me and Drea, the ones who haven't actually finished watching it, because it did start so strong and it was so funny in the beginning. And I really thought that Joel McHale is really funny.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I used
totally.
to watch The Soup, like when he hosted that show on E, I think it was. It was so funny. I loved The Soup.
Yeah. Joel McHale, he was recently on an episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the celebrity edition, and he is so funny, just like not like trying to be funny, like just him being a person is so funny.
Yeah.
And I love him. And that's why like it's just like so like a bummer because I feel like okay, in addition to like Joel McHale, like obviously they also had like Donald Glover, they had Chevy Chase, they also had what's his face? The guy from The Hangover. Or not, he's not from The Hangover. What's his name?
Yeah.
Ken Jeong?
Yeah, and isn't he in The Hangover?
Is he in The Hangover?
He is.
Okay, yeah. I'm like, I haven't seen The Hangover in a minute, but yeah, like they had him. They had so many like big actors, and there's some episodes in that show that I feel like to this day are just like so genius, like the one where they do the alternate like timelines or whatever, like the darkest timeline or whatever. That episode I feel like is so ingeniously done, and it bums me out that I wasn't able to finish the series, you know, like it's not every day that I can say like this is such a funny show and yet I can't finish the series.
I think where the series finale does succeed at for that show is that it does embrace the idea that this is a parody of sitcoms on TV. And it really does embrace that in the series finale, which that's probably one of the main reasons it's worth watching. I mean, it's definitely not as strong as the rest of the show. I mean, without a lot of the characters not there, but what they are able to do with it, it's good. I mean, you know, the show did face a lot of like road bumps and stuff like that. I mean,
like, what do you mean, like in terms of
with
being
like Donald
filmed
Glover
or
just
what?
not wanting to really act anymore and just focus on music for a while? Like that wasn't anything Dan Harmon could do anything about. Like, it's understandable where it's like, yeah, of course it's not going to be as strong. Once again, I do believe it deserves to be on this list, but like at the same time, I could understand where it's like, this isn't fully your fault. This last season's not the greatest thing.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I know that like the reason Donald Glover wasn't like him leaving wasn't because, you know, the show did something wrong, but still it's like like up his like contract money or something. Like he was my favorite character.
He was one of the funniest characters. Like Troy and Abed were like a super hilarious duo.
Yeah, like me and Aaron always say that too. We're always just like Troy and Abed in the morning. Like we always say that to each other. So good. But yeah, real bummer. Any other comments, you guys?
Nah.
No.
Okay, well, in that case, let's move on here. So the next show, and I feel like this show, I have a lot of similar commentary as Community for this one, is The Office.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I hear that like people really are die hard about you need to watch this till the end, and I just can't.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too, and because I can't watch it to the end, I looked up like what happens in the last episode because I was just like, what is so great that everyone is making a big deal about it? And I do have to admit it does sound cute. So in the last episode, like it's like I don't even remember, but like there's a part with like Michael Scott coming back and like Pam sees him and they have this whole like moment with each other of like him being like, I'm proud of you. And it's kind of like this daughter, like father kind of like figure like energy, and that sounds cute, and I feel like I'd be open to watching the last episode, but like Alex, like I also couldn't make it to the end.
So I should say that I really did like it. I thought that Michael Scott was the most annoying character ever. Like he really bothered me like quite a bit, but that's just because like I don't generally like really dumb characters, like characters that just are, you know, play, you know, someone who's dumb. which isn't, you know, Steve Carell's fault. Like that just
Right.
was the character that it was. And Michael did actually have a lot of funny moments, but for the most part, he was really annoying to me.
Yeah.
And it got kind of weird for me, like when they brought like when it changed into like saber printers.
Yeah, totally.
Like it just, I felt like the caliber of episodes just went down in this weird way. Like, and I attribute that to like, I kind of started losing interest after Jim and Pam had their first baby. Cause that's, I feel like when it kind of transitioned a little bit into the saber printer like arc. And I think like there was a character named Johnny California on there for a
Yeah.
little while. And he was kind of weird to me as well. And I'm just kind of like, it wasn't as funny to me afterwards because there were really funny like parts of it. And like just the other day, my older brother sent me and my twin brother like this never before seen like cold open that NBC like released that like was Dwight, like, you know, Jim pulling a prank on Dwight. And it was like this whole like Matrix thing, and it was so funny. I'll have to send you the link because it was really so funny, and it reminds you how funny that show could be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of disappointing to me when like they took it in a weird direction that I just like I lost interest, just how I did in Community.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Like I also couldn't stand Michael's character the entire show. Like as I was watching it, like I liked all the characters, and every single time that Michael opened his mouth, I was just like, shut up. And it was just like really amazing to me though, because the second that his character left, I was like, wait, like it's something's wrong. Like it's not the right energy. Like I was like, bring him back, you know, like I hated him. And yet I was just like, I can't watch this show without Michael in it. Yeah, it was weird. How about you, Ryan? What do you thought? Or what are your thoughts?
I'm somebody, I'm like not crazy about The Office. I do have a fond place in my heart for it. I do think the first season's one of the worst seasons of the show. And all those other seasons without Michael are pretty bad as well. There's some okay moments in those seasons. I think I think it's like the reverse for me, where it's like the series as a whole isn't always strong, but the series finale is very strong. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really funny and cute and heartfelt, and you really do get to see these characters grow. I think like that's the only reason to push through it at times is like, okay, I just want to get the payoff.
That's everyone's commentary on it.
I can imagine, because from what I've heard about the last episode, you know, with Dwight getting married to Angela finally and Michael coming back, and then I'm pretty sure that like that's the point where like Jim, like as a present to Pam, like brings out a compilation of like all their moments from like the documentary. That was pretty cute, actually. Especially since
I haven't seen it, so
well,
I'm just like
they and one thing that I also didn't want to watch that I heard about is that they end up like at some point having like marital problems where like it looks like they might get divorced, and I'm just like, you cannot divorce Jim and Pam.
Yeah.
And like break my heart that way. Like I didn't want to even see it.
I actually this is a little side comment really fast, but I just read an article that was just like some of the most problematic male characters that everyone loves, but like is actually like not good. And what the first one on there was Jim Halpert. And I was just like, yeah. And I was like, what? But I love Jim. And I read it and I was like, oh God, I think they're right. And they're like making all these points of like how he's just like, one, he was like going out, constantly pursuing a girl who's engaged. Two, like every single time that he made a decision, like Pam would be like, don't do it. And he would just do it. Three, like he spent all his days like just messing with his coworkers, like not focusing on his work, just being a distraction. And they kept on pointing out all these things. And I was just like, oh God, they're kind of right. But yeah, I'm with you also because I was like very much shipping Jim and Pam. And so I was like, I don't want to see them break up.
Yeah.
Like I am not ready for another Ross and Rachel like debacle.
Oh, for real. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely am with you though, Ryan, the comment you made earlier and how like you don't necessarily love The Office. Like I know a lot of people, like a lot of my friends, they are diehard Office fans. Like they're just like, it's the best show I've ever seen. And I'm just like, I like it, but like honestly, like it's not really on my top. Like if it's on, I'll watch it. And I do think that they have some absolutely hilarious cold opens. But as a whole, I think there's a lot better episodes. And in terms of like the documentary style, I am very partial to Parks and Rec. Everyone who knows me that, like I love Parks and Rec. So for me, The Office is just kind of like an okay show. And the fact that like I can't get to the ending, even though I know the ending is good. Like everyone has told me the last episode is really good. I just felt like it needed to be on this list.
Yeah, me too.
But that's just one person's opinion. Last comments. I feel like Ryan was the least opinionated on this one this time.
I think it's like the least offensive out of
Yeah,
all of
I
them.
agree with you. I do.
Yeah, out of the ones on this
Yeah.
list, this one is kind of just whatever.
Can I bring up a sidebar real quick?
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Because I don't know if you guys have watched these shows. I'm gonna make this quick.
Yeah, do
Two
it.
I just want to bring up real quick that deserve it. Gossip Girl. I wasted a year of my life on that show.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
of an ex of mine loved that show, and it is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And like I was invested. I was like, I want to know who Gossip Girl is. Who is it? Give me the details. And yeah, it was stupid. And Smallville. I hated how Smallville ended.
How did Smallville end?
Him like opening up his shirt and you see the Superman S, but nothing's really resolved or anything. It kind of
So he just like
wraps...
reveals his identity. That's it.
No, it's like he never really fully becomes Superman until like the very last moments of Smallville. Like that's basically how the show ends. He's running off a roof in slow motion, and you see the S, and you're like, "That's all we get."
That's
okay. Like
interesting.
All right, and I think it was on the WB. Both of those shows were.
Yeah, they was on the WB.
Mm-hmm. I never heard really great things about Smallville.
It starts off strong. And loses speed very quickly.
I think that the guy that they had playing, the Superman character, I think that he was a really good like casting for it. Like I think that he has a really good like Superman look. He was in Cheaper by the Dozen as well, so I'm just kind of like every time I saw him, I'm just like, hey, it's the guy from Smallville.
Yeah. No idea. Never seen either of those shows. I do know what those shows are, but I never watched either.
I cannot rewatch Gossip Girl. I'm with Ryan. I think that like if you're watching it, you're kind of in a little bit of a twisted place, I think. Because I feel like that show just hurts you to watch.
It's an awful show. It really is. But when it's one of those shows where you get madder by the second. Yeah. And you're just like, why? And it's like one of those things where your partner's like, let's watch this. I don't know about your guys' partners, because that'd be kind of
my partner did not tell me.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron would ever be like, hey, let's watch Gossip Girl. I'd be like, Aaron, what's going on, bud? You need to talk. But like it's one of those shows where you're like, I knew nothing about it going into it. So I was like, oh, this is dumb fun. And it's just like, this is stupid. I'm like, and it's just like, okay, maybe the ending is going to be good. Maybe the reveal. Because you know what? WB, sometimes they have some good twists in their shows. So you're like, okay, maybe this is going to be good. And
it was like, pretty dumb.
Yeah.
What was the ending? Like, what was so dumb about it?
Well, so, like, as you can probably imagine, well, maybe if you know anything about Gossip Girl, is that Gossip Girl, like, the name refers to a pen name for, like, kind of like a high school gossip columnist almost. Like,
isn't she kind of same concept as Pretty Little Liars with A?
I mean, I haven't seen Pretty Little Liars, so I can't like really comment on it.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, sorry.
Also a bad series finale.
Also, yeah, so like,
go on.
All the characters go to this really fancy like prep school, which is just a cesspool of like human jerks. They're just the worst people ever.
Sure.
And like the whole thing is that like Gossip Girl, she like sends out like blasts on people, basically just like ragging on them.
Okay.
And it kind of like chronicles really like the lives like of this group of people. And the whole thing at the end is you find out who Gossip Girl is.
Okay.
Which it was like the stupidest thing. They made a dumb choice, I feel.
What was the choice?
Dan.
Who's Dan?
It was a dude.
So,
it makes no sense.
So he wrote, so Dan is basically the poor boy character.
Okay.
Like it's a whole rags to riches sort of story.
Okay.
So like he's in love with Blake Lively's character, which it's Blake Lively, so there's that. Mm-hmm. So he's like in love with her and he's Gossip Girl. So what he does is like he kind of writes himself into the story so that he like gets involved with her, and that of course makes him involved with all the friends and whatever. So like that's how like his life with him and his sister, because his sister like was kind of okay in the beginning, but then turned into like a raging psychopath like during the whole thing. Because it's basically like a commentary a little bit of popularity and like high school cliques and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just hurts to watch, really. Like it makes you just upset.
Speaking of No, thank you. But really fast, I have two side comments really, really fast. First one, did you guys ever hear or watch the show called The Bad Girls Club?
No. I mean, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Is
Well,
that the one where they all fight in a house?
I don't know. I've never seen it. The only reason I brought it up is because I remember like one time I was talking to somebody in one of my college courses and they like leaned over and they're just like, do you watch the Bad Girls Club? And I was like, no. And they're like, you look exactly like one of the characters. And I was just like, I don't know who that is.
I think
but
it's a reality TV show.
Yeah.
I don't know.
About a bunch of girls. It's kind of like almost Jersey Shore-esque in the sense of like they're always beating on each other, like actually and physically like beating on each other.
Ew, I hate that I'm affiliated then. Anyway, that was my first comment. Second comment, that whole story you were saying how like the gossip girl ended up being like a guy and like twist or whatever. That actually reminds me of this like TED talk I was listening to yesterday for one of my assignments for class. And this is kind of like a sad story, but it was really interesting because I was just like, I can't believe this actually happened. But it was this woman who she is like advocating for like people who like their kids experience bullying because like her daughter was bullied in school like from like the earliest of ages, like when she was in kindergarten she was being bullied all the way up through like 8th grade until finally they're just like, okay, we're going to switch her schools because like this is outrageous, like she's just being like bullied up the wazoo. And so they switch her schools, and at her new school she's like doing really well and everything's going great and she's making friends. And then at the time, like that's when like MySpace was really big. So then she was just like, oh, mom, I need to get a MySpace. Like, this is this. And her mom's like, okay, but like, I'm going to monitor it. I know. And so like, she got a MySpace, and there was like this kid who was named like Josh Evans or whatever, who like friended her. And she's like, oh, he's so cute. He said that, da, 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 da. So she's like having this whole relationship with this kid. And he's like telling her, you're so beautiful. You're so great. You're so da, 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 whatever. And then a few weeks after, he like totally 180s and he's just like, no, like I don't ever want to talk to you again. You're so mean. You're so like just going off on her, right? And so she's like breaking down crying. She's like, why? What are you talking about? Like da da da. And then her mom is just like, Megan or whatever her name is. She's just like, Megan, like you can't like let these people get to you. Like you gotta just like let it go. Like don't get into a verbal altercation. Like just, you know, like they're gonna say mean things and you just have to let it go. And so then her like kid gets all upset and she like runs upstairs. And then 20 minutes later, her mom like goes and checks on her and she had hung herself in her closet, committing suicide. Like she died. And ultimately they find out that Josh Evans was actually a mom of her like best friend since they were 4 years old, who lived like a few houses down the street. And she had created the profile because she heard that that girl was talking bad behind the back of her friends, like talking bad about her. And so like she thought that this was like a good way to get revenge on her, the mom.
Ugh.
Well,
Isn't that out of this world?
Out of this world, disgusting.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it was out of this world, but it's so common. And I feel like we're going into a totally different
I know we're going
Yeah.
into a different topic here. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's sick. Catfishing is like a real deal. Like I know a lot of people used to catfish with my sister's picture back in the day. And she would get like people messaging her being like, Diana, what are you doing? And she's just like, what? You know, like things like that. And like, there's like, you know, like a person had a relationship with my sister ultimately to be like, who are you? And she's just like, who are you? You know, it's like gross.
I wish people would use my pictures to catfish. I'm real honored.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, we can save catfishing for a whole podcast on its own. But anyways, so we have 2 more listed here. I personally don't have any commentary on the next 2.
They're both mine.
They're both Alex's. I don't know if Ryan's seen them and can comment on it, but the first one is Game of Thrones.
Well, I'm going to say that one for last because I feel like that one is pretty problematic for a lot of people. So I'll just say that one for last so we can end on a good note, I guess.
Okay, sure. So then before that, you have Seinfeld listed.
Right. So, Ryan, have you ever watched Seinfeld?
I watched like an episode or 2. It just wasn't. I think the same time I got into Seinfeld, Always Sunny in Philadelphia was a thing, and it's basically just the same thing, but the people are worse.
Yeah. So
yeah,
like my whole thing, like Seinfeld is on this list for me because like one, like this is something that my family would watch together, like ever since I was little.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, should I have been watching it when I was young? Maybe not. But like it was like going on since before I was born, really. I think like early 90s it started. But anyway, so basically about like this squad of 4 people, and it was essentially just about like a comedian's like daily life sort of deal. Like Jerry Seinfeld like played himself, Jerry Seinfeld, with his friends. It was just like basically about all their lives. And it was a really funny show for me and for my family. Like that's something that we enjoyed watching together. So for me, it had a lot of sentimental value.
Sure.
And it had a pretty long run, like 9 seasons, I think. And TRUUU, as Ryan pointed out, like the characters, they're not really that great at people. Like they're kind of scummy a little bit. Definitely not as scummy as the characters in It's Always Sunny, because that's like a whole different extreme. But the way that Seinfeld ended, I just felt like, well, one, I guess I understand of how you could really like end a show that's essentially about nothing. So basically, how it ends is that like they were on a plane, like NBC was sending, because they ended up like Jerry ends up having like his own like TV show, basically like a parody off of the TV show that we were watching. So it was called Jerry. It was essentially Seinfeld, and like they ended up, the TV network, which was NBC, ended up like flying them somewhere, and the plane almost goes down. And like they're having like this whole like moment where like, oh, we're gonna die, whatever. So they end up being fine, but they had to make an emergency landing somewhere on the East Coast. I don't remember where it was specifically, but basically what happens is they end up watching someone like getting robbed, but they don't do anything to stop it. Which, you know, is I feel like a typical like New Yorker sort of deal, or like that's how like they were portraying it.
Yeah.
But like in this area where they were at, there was something called the Good Samaritan law, where you're like lawfully obligated to help someone in trouble. So basically they got put on trial in this place for being bad people. And like they brought back like all these different people from the show, like all these big names and stuff, to basically like as witnesses in their trial of them being bad people. And basically the show ends with them all getting sent to prison.
Oh God.
And that's just how it ends. And like Jerry does like a stand-up act in jail.
Oh God, that's awful.
And I'm just kind of like, why did he make this choice? Why did it end this way? I don't really understand why they all had to go to prison, because it's not like they even showed anything like, oh, afterwards like they all get out or whatever. It's just that like the last thing of them is like they all are put in a holding cell after the trial.
Dang, then, like, that's a wild ending. Like that's something I did not foresee you were gonna say.
Yeah. And like to this day, I'm just kind of like, I don't know why you made this decision. It's really annoying to me that this is the way that it ended. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I don't feel like a ton of people would really relate to that, because I feel like Seinfeld isn't really something that people our age are into.
Yeah, I mean, I was never interested in it. It wasn't funny to me.
The comparable show that was on basically at the exact same time was Friends.
Love.
So if you're our age, you're probably more into Friends than you are into Seinfeld.
Definitely in love with Friends. Anyway, right. Okay, Alex. So
moving on to the last
your big one.
Okay, the big one that I feel like a lot of people would relate to is Game of Thrones.
Which I haven't seen, so
it was so horrendous. Have you seen it, Ryan?
No. Yeah, I waited a long time because I was like, either they're going to keep up this momentum or they're going to mess up so badly that everyone's going to be really mad. So I'm going to wait this out. Like, I think by the time, like, because I will, like, at my performing arts school, everybody talked about how great Game of Thrones was. I'm like, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure the acting, I'm not a big fantasy person. So that's already, like, a point against it. But, like, by the time it was already in its last season, I was like, okay, this could go one of two ways. Either I have a whole show I could watch now that's really good, or they're going to mess it up really bad. And
you didn't waste your time. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, moral of the story is, I didn't waste my time.
That's how I feel too, Ryan. I had a lot of friends, and when I say a lot of friends, I mean every single friend I have, minus Ryan, I guess, telling me that I needed to watch Game of Thrones for years. And I actually watched the first episode, and I was like, I can't take it because it's too triggering and painful to see, like, the desecration of, like, the female. Like, I really hated that first episode and how I felt like what's her, Daenerys or whatever her name is, was like being treated and like being forced to like marry this guy. And like, I just hated it. Like, it just made me feel wrong. And everyone was just like, no, you have to stick with it because she gets so awesome and she turns into this really powerful character and da 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 da. And I was like, well, I guess maybe. And then I go to hear that like at the ending, she totally like 180s and like sucks again. And I'm just like, why am I gonna watch this?
There's a lot to unpack there in what you just said. There really is. So I will grant you like 100% that it can be very difficult to watch at times, especially since like they try to make it, you know, typical of that period where, you know, men are very like dominant, whatever, and like women's role is like this. But they're very good at making very like repugnant, like morally repugnant characters that you truly loathe. Like you're wishing death upon them in a very real way. Like one of the like most controversial characters from that show, he was a kid and his name
is he that blonde kid?
Joffrey, yes.
And
I've like
seen that kid in like
Lost Ryan.
I know, I'm sure he's like seeing something. Go on.
So like him, for example, he stopped acting after that show. I think a part of it might have been because like his character was so hated. Like I think like everyone I've ever talked to was just so happy when his character was killed off. It's a really brutal show. There's some really disgusting characters in it that you really like hate. It's not even like love to hate. It's like you hate them with every fiber of your being.
Sure.
But like there's also some like really good like character development, but like the whole thing from the beginning is you're waiting for winter to come. So like the whole thing, like one of the main families is the Stark family. So like
Tony
that's
Stark?
like no, not at all.
The only Stark I care about. Right, Ryan, am I right?
No, you can force me to marry Jason Momoa anytime. I'm fine with that.
Oh, is that who it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know anything. Go on, I'm sorry.
Which, by the way, Emilia Clarke and Jason Momoa are really cute, like friends. Like after the show, like they still call each other like their nicknames from the show, and it's like really adorable. But anyway, all that aside, so basically, like you spend all this time like investing into the show. I mean, it was 8 seasons, 10 episodes each, but like each episode was, you know, the typical HBO hour-long sort of deal, and some of them in the last season were even longer. And like it was really exciting when you got to like the last 2 seasons, because finally after all this time of all these characters being separated from each other, like characters that I'd never met before that you've been watching their journey this whole time, they're finally getting together and meeting, and all this really cool stuff. And Daenerys, Dany, like she was finally like on her way from being, you know, who she was in the first episode, which was like, you know, life was doing her dirty. And then to the end of like, she's looking like she's gonna be the next queen, you know, of the whole realm sort of deal. And it basically, How I Met Your Mother did, where they undid all the character development. Like, because at that point, Jon Snow and Daenerys were like an item, which was kind of gross in its own right, because really and truly, they were like aunt and nephew, which you didn't know until like towards the end.
Ew.
Yes, there's a lot of gross things in that show. That's
I
not
thought
the
Daenerys
first
like got
thing.
with Jason Momoa.
Well, Jason Momoa died pretty quick, so
awkward.
There's I think that like
wait, is he a Dothraki dude?
Yeah.
The only thing I know, like literally the only thing I know about this show are things I hear from other shows. And there's like a part in Parks and Rec when like Donna was just like, have you seen those Dothraki dudes? They can get it. And so that's the only thing I know. Sorry, continue.
So like one thing that you need to know about Dany's character is that her dad was known as the Mad King. Like he was the previous king of like the whole land. And he kind of went crazy. And one of the main characters, his name was Jaime Lannister. He ended up killing Dany's dad. And that's how she like got put in exile and all this whatever. So she finally, you know, goes back to take the whole throne basically from like the most evil woman ever. And they turn her crazy, essentially. They make her the Mad Queen, and Jon Snow ends up having to kill her. Sick. And like literally my whole office when like the last season like started airing, like we were so into it. Like I was like co-chairing like a Game of Thrones death pool,
Yeah.
like betting money on like who dies that season. And really, because I was working on Sundays as well when that show aired. So after every episode, I'd send out an email to everyone, like giving them an update on like who's in the lead in the pool and whatever. And by the time like the finale happened, like I just sent the email. I'm just like, well, ... That was what it was. Here's the winner.
And everyone's like, boo.
Yeah, like none of the characters' stories made sense anymore. Dany became the Mad Queen. Jamie went back to being in love with his sister.
Ew.
His twin sister.
Ew. So many reasons that's wrong.
They ended up dying together, which I'm just kind of like, Jamie was actually cool there for a second. Jon Snow was banished. Jon Snow's little brother-ish kind of person ended up being the king. None of it made sense, and everyone was so mad about it. Especially since...
Sorry, go on.
Everyone loved that show so much, like just globally people love that show so much, and then this ending happens and everyone was just like, what the heck?
So ultimately, maybe I missed it when you were talking, but like what, like winter was coming, like what did that mean?
Oh, right, sorry. So there was a character that was called the Night King. So basically he's like a snow zombie. And the whole thing, it kinda, but not really at all. So the whole thing was that like the Stark family was preparing for winter to come, which means the Night King like coming from, because they live in like this frozen tundra area basically. And like there's an even like colder like area where the Night King like resides and whatever, and he was building up like his forces of dead zombie ice things.
Okay.
And like the whole thing that Jon Snow was trying to do like after a certain point was like, hey, the Night King's actually real and he's coming, so I need to round up everyone else in our kingdom real quick. Stop fighting amongst yourselves. We need to unite against the Night King because the Night King's going to kill everyone. And to me, like an eternal winter and all this whatever. So like the Night King ends up dying like in the most baller way, actually. Like it was really cool. Like they did that actually very well. And yeah, so like up to a certain point in the last season, like up till when the Night King died, it was actually pretty cool. But then afterwards, the entire thing just fell apart.
I just want to let the people know who are listening right now. Me and Dre have the same confused look that we had when Alex was talking about Animal Crossing. We have no idea what she's talking about.
Wait, what's this? And who are these people? And Dothraki, what?
It's really like there's so much to explain in that show that you just like couldn't even get into it. But anyone who's a fan of the show, like an actual like steady fan, would agree with me.
Yeah.
The ending of this thing was the most atrocious thing ever, and they'd probably be just like as passionate about it as we are about How I Met Your Mother being horrible.
I'm sure like everyone I know is like the ending of Game of Thrones is awful and this is this. And like I feel like I wish I could relate. Like I wish I watched it and knew, but at the same time I don't, and I'm happy I didn't.
I think that's probably okay that you don't watch it, because I feel like if you watched it, you'd get stressed out by it, to be honest.
100%. I'm very easily stressed. And I don't feel like it's worth it.
This show set a precedent, I think, for no character is safe, even if they're a main character. Everyone is on the chopping block. Everyone gets to die.
No, I get like sick attachments to characters. I can't do that.
Yeah, Drake gets spooked easily. She gets very spooked.
What?
She gets stressed, spooked.
Well, the thing is that, okay, like, I don't know if Ryan's referring to this, but Ryan always spooks me because he is the most silent little mouse I've ever seen in my entire life. And he'll just pop out in random corners where, like, I'm not expecting him. And I'm just like, Lord in heaven. Every single time his little face pops up and I'm just like, holy hell, my heart.
I think the thing for me with Game of Thrones, like, I would hear how great the acting is and like all that stuff, and I'm sure it is on the show, but every time I've seen somebody outside of Game of Thrones has not been that impressive to me too, so I feel like that has to do with it too. For me,
you mean personally. Like the actors outside of it?
Yeah, the actors like outside of Game of Thrones. I'm sure, I forgot who I was talking to about this today. I was talking to one of my coworkers about this, but like there's certain actors who are so good for a role that after everything else they do, I think they just, most of them just kind of got lucky because I've never seen any of them in anything else that I like.
What about what's his face? The short guy.
Oh, but I knew about him since like Elf.
Okay. Well, what about
He's really funny.
what about Sophie Turner?
She's cute. She hasn't blown me away.
Yeah, I'm not really in love with anything
Very
that she's
fine.
done otherwise. I like Emilia Clarke as like a comedic actress, actually. I think she could be pretty funny. I think that Jason Momoa is doing okay as an actor.
Yeah,
I think
Jason
he's
Momoa-
hot.
Yeah. Yeah, I would eat
Yeah.
like a bowl of cereal off his chest. Yeah, most definitely.
Like he can do whatever he wants to me, and like I will be like praising my Jesus. But in terms
Stay
of his
tuned for the next
acting
podcast
ability,
episode.
in terms of his acting ability, I don't know that I think he's amazing. Like I didn't think he was that good in Aquaman. Like I kind of fell asleep in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that I'd say like is a strong actor outside of it would be Sean Bean, because he's in the first season. He's like a main player in the first season, but also like he's only in the first season.
Who's Sean
And
Bean?
he
Lord
plays
of the Rings.
Boromir.
Oh, he's in it. That's his name? I don't know.
Yeah, that's his name. His name's Sean Bean. So like he's a
Okay.
pretty big actor outside of that, but he was also a bigger actor before all that.
I totally get that. You know, funny, when you were explaining the ending and like kind of the plot of Game of Thrones,
There's
I was
so much to
literally
explain, man.
just envisioning Lord of the Rings. Like I was just envisioning those characters and like them doing what you're saying. Like that was how I was like picturing it for some reason.
And really to put like the final, like crossing the T's, dotting the I's of like this upsetting episode of like bad things is that I broke another nail.
Oh my God.
And I found it, and it's like right at the nail bed too. So I'm just kind of like, I just cut all my nails to be the same length.
It's dunzo.
And I broke a nail.
It's dunzo.
Which
But
is
yeah,
just
this was an upsetting episode. To round us out, why don't we all choose which one we think is the most upsetting, like worst last episode?
How much Mother? 100%. Always.
Ryan, what do you think?
I feel like just because of how it destroyed the rest of the series, probably How I Met Your Mother.
For me, it's an easy answer to say How I Met Your Mother because like obviously we like opened the podcast with how much we hate it, but ultimately I actually think that the worst one was Scrubs because it really just soiled the most perfect series for me. But like I could still rewatch it, but I just feel like that season 9 is like the ultimate worst season I've ever seen.
I've told Drea before, I believe that like I like rewatching Scrubs up to a certain point, but then I feel the weight of the ending like coming towards me and like season 9 coming towards me. I'm just like, I want to stay far away from it.
Yeah, I just
So
always
I'll just, like,
pretend
stay
it doesn't
back here.
exist. Yeah.
But I'm sure
always like no.
I'm sure if I were to watch the season finale to season 8, I could still cry just the
Totally.
entire time.
Totally. Season 8's amazing. And that's why I feel like my choice is Scrubs because the season 8 finale is the most beautiful ending ever. And why? Why did they have to ruin it?
Yeah.
But anyway. Okay, guys. That was our finally like long anticipated follow-up to our episode 1 worst movie endings. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Message us, comment on our Instagram post on what TV shows you think have the worst endings, and we'll talk on there. Take care, guys.